Hey, Courtney. Courtney, can you hear me?
All right, you guys, let me go ahead. I think I have this live on Facebook.
Can you hear me, Courtney?
All right.
John's gonna have to do it.
All right. Let's see, I'm gonna triple check. I think we're also live on.
What time? I got this meeting for 2 hours. Courtney, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I was
We are Facebook Live.
okay.
FYI.
So I've been taking a shower at my brother's house after work every day because of all the corona stuff. I don't want to go to my house with all that stuff on me after work.
Mm-hmm.
I was Lysol wiping my computer standing on the porch. And I wiped the bottom of it and bumped it out of my hand, and it bounced down 7 stairs on the concrete. And so my screen doesn't work on my laptop, but I can at least, it's working though, obviously. I just can't see anything on it.
That's a bummer. I think I'm always lucky. I get one of those very, very tough cases because I'm lucky that it lives as long as that any technology lives as long as it does with me. All right. Let me get it set up. Hey guys, welcome on board. We're going to be getting started in just a little bit.
What's the evidence?
Hey, good morning, Mia. Good morning, everyone. Look, we're going to get started in just a few minutes. Let everyone jump on, get logged in, everything along those lines.
This time of year, we're screwing back and forth.
Hey, Sharon, good morning.
They're relatively quiet.
Hey, Sharon, I unmuted you. How's it going?
Not hearing anybody.
This morning. Hey. Let's see. Hey, Jared, you saw my message? Okay, there. Can y'all hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. Jared, can you hear me?
Jared, are you multitasking? No, I'm just kidding.
Ah.
That's not right. That's
That explains it. Forgive the animals in the background. No. Let me close this.
Hey, Sharon.
Hey.
I know Kelly can't wave and Jessica can't wave, but hey, Kelly and Jessica.
Hey, everybody. Oh, there's Daniel.
And
So
Daniel.
Daniel sent me the most awesome birthday thing this morning. That is, I'm going to have to share. Hey.
Does that make you smile a little bit?
That was hysterical. Thank you.
Hey,
You know what's funny is that the cake face slam thing, I did not expect it to work that well. I was like, all right, that was actually a little extra. And then to get it off my face was pretty interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So he sent me. Now, is that your wife that was standing next to you?
That was, yes.
Okay.
That was my mistress. That one. That one.
For anyone that hears Daniel doesn't know him, you need to get to know him. He's amazing.
Thank you. That's very nice. Hey, Kelly Osmond. She's a nice lady.
Cool.
Kelly is nice. Hey, Jared Miguez. Oh, did I just miss your call?
No, not just missed your call. It was probably an hour and a half ago, but we're all right. We'll talk later.
You figured it out?
Yeah.
All right.
You know, Sharon, what I've learned is if you just let the call go to voicemail like 30 minutes, most of the time it handles itself, right? So then you don't have to call him back.
This one didn't answer itself. I need you to call me back.
That's okay. Cool.
I will figure it out.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you soon. So I guess it's 10 on the
All
dot.
right,
We have a
I'll
lot
turn it
to
off.
cover. So y'all ready to get started? So is John's going to plug in with us in a little bit?
Yeah, he's finished up closing.
Okay. Well, awesome. That's a good thing to be doing. Cool. We all ready for me to get started?
Yeah, real quick, we are on Facebook Live as well. For those of you who are watching via Facebook Live, I don't know why, and look, I don't know, I'm not the most technologically advanced, but for whatever reason, Facebook Live sometimes has been just cutting out on me and just quitting whenever I do these Zoom shares to the live Facebook feed. So we're doing both Zoom, and Zoom is recording, and we're doing Facebook Live. So just in case if you're on Facebook Live, it cuts you out, go register for the Zoom and jump on there. No matter what, I can always take the recording and upload it to Facebook for a replay. Just FYI.
Cool. Awesome. So whenever we had this presentation, for any of y'all that were there the last year, we started it off and I was asking everyone, how's everyone doing today? But this time we don't really have anyone that can respond back, because right now we have everyone on instant mute, and we have your names across the board and your beautiful photos that y'all are posting. So hopefully everyone's doing well and that you have a wonderful day, and we bring you some value during this webinar. So I'm really excited because we have Courtney, Jared, and John will be with us in a little bit. Like they said, they're closing away over at Florida Lead Title. And they're going to be able to come to you and introduce themselves here shortly. And I'm going to do the same, but just to kind of get some housekeeping things out of the way first. We have everyone, if you are encouraged to utilize that chat box at the bottom of your screen. We're going to be answering questions throughout this. We encourage you to ask questions. And like I said, everything's going to be muted, so that way we can just flip back and forth between each other and bring you as much value as possible within a short 2-hour time frame. So forgive any animal noises in the background too, because I've got my dogs and my cat in here. So anyway, just get that out of the way. So whether you're here because you're curious, you're interested, out of boredom, you just need something to do during this quarantine, we're happy to have you. And to kind of give you an overview about what we're going to be doing today. Now, Courtney, Jared, John, and I are going to dive in deeper as far as definitions on these things and really how they work with everything. But if you've ever heard of the term assignment of contract, wholesaling, contract for sale, maybe you've seen marketing around town, or you have clients or people that receive them in the mail that say we buy houses. Or even if someone says, man, I'd really think that, you know, if that house was fixed up, I would buy it. Those are the kind of things that we get to help you with and your potential clients that you have, or we're here to be able to share with you how other ways that you can make money as a realtor, or just if you're someone that's interested in wholesaling, we can share those kind of dynamics with you. And forgive me if I'm talking a little fast. We have a lot to cover. So, you know, this will be, it's being recorded, so you'll be able to go back and look at it. So to kind of give you an overview, just really quick, so you can recognize these terms, like I said, everyone as presenting today will be able to go a little bit deeper into this. But just so you know what wholesaling means, it means as a middle woman or a middleman, just you're the middle person in this type of transaction. And what I mean by that type of transaction is an assignment of contract. And Jared and John are going to dive into actually what an assignment of contract is and the processes and the legal aspects of that. And so just so you're aware, and when assigning a contract is assigning a contract is simply selling a contract, not the property itself. And I'm reading you a specific definition so you guys can follow along with that. When you put a property under contract, you have equitable interest in the property. You don't own the property. You control it by the means of the contract. The end buyer is stepping into your shoes, assuming the role of the buyer. And like I said, whenever Jared and John take this over, they're going to explain exactly what that looks like. So when wholesaling a property, you must sign a contract to purchase the property from the seller. So a purchase and sale agreement. As a realtor, you have to use Louisiana State Purchase Agreement. We'll go over that in our compliance section a little while later. And then, you know, it's technically the contract itself gives you the equitable interest in the property, which gives you control. So just to kind of give you an idea of what that, if you've heard of those kind of things, those are the kind of things we're going to go over today. So components, you have a seller, a wholesaler, and an end buyer. So kind of jump a little bit further ahead. I'm going to go over, like I said, compliance in a little while. Courtney and I are going to discuss various ways how you can get paid. And I said various ways. And then also how you can employ those around you. So before doing that, share a little bit about who I am. I've been in the industry, well, I've been surrounded by it my entire life. My father has been in the industry for 40 plus years in commercial and residential. And I actually wanted nothing to do with real estate, believe it or not, before 2006. My ex-husband actually really full-fledged got me into it. I was his gopher and doing repair work and all that kind of stuff whenever we were flipping properties, and then ended up becoming a landlord. And I say that because in 2008, we were renovating multifamily homes. And so we ended up getting rental properties at that time. Otherwise, you know, we would have went bankrupt. And so we rented everything that we had. And those are the type of properties we had, in addition to a couple of single family homes we ended up doing some creative financing with. So fast forward to December of 2016, I sold my last duplex at that time, or last 2 duplexes I had in this particular area. And I wanted to be able to reinvest here locally. and also start flipping more properties. And so my father and I teamed back up and we started flipping properties, and I also got my real estate license during that time. And the reason why I did, I'm an investor first. That's what I grew up around. I love that side of the real estate world, but I got my license so that way I still had that opportunity to be able to help retail folks with, now I'm actually part of a team. But at that time I was able to just have that opportunity to still help folks while I was building my investment business. And so it was really just for listing my own properties and my own research, really. So retail side of things were cherries on top for me. And so I found out about wholesaling in, let's say, about early 2018, I guess. And that really piqued my interest because my dad nor I had ever heard of it. And it's been around for a very long time. It's very common in the commercial world. And I have a feeling that he's probably done it a time or two. He just didn't realize it. And he's very familiar with double closings and things like that. So when I found out about it, I dived into that and just started really pouring into that, did a few transactions and just really loved it because it was like I got to do a flip property without really doing a flip property, I guess you could say. But I love flipping properties. So it's just kind of best of both worlds. It helped me with time because I can run repair costs, comps, things of that nature, and put together a nice package for an investor that doesn't have the time to do that. And I get that because I didn't have time to do that either when I was in the midst of a project. So fast forward to even last year, the whole idea of a presentation got brought up because some colleagues in the industry, Linda LaRocca and Dawn with the Mandeville Keller Williams office, we were sitting down talking, and they said, well, as a realtor, we really feel like you could bring value to the industry and share this with other realtors and make sure not only do they recognize it, they understand it, but they're doing it compliantly, because there are some rules and regulations that you've got to follow. Even though investment work is my niche and my love and passion in real estate, as a realtor, I still have to follow rules. So you don't just get out of that because that's not, your thing. And so we did a presentation last year. I went to Courtney because I've never done a presentation before. And I was like, can you just please help me with this? I really trusted her and saw what she was doing in the industry because she does wholesaling at a volume as just an investor. And that was really important to me. And that spoke to me because of the quality work that she's about and the good business that she promotes and her knowledge and experience and the people she surrounds herself by. Well, then she brought Jared and John to the picture. And I was just like, well, this is wonderful. And so they're about the same thing. And they're attorneys over at Florida Lead Title in Covington. They have offices all over as well. So we ended up, now we had such a great response from that. Now we're here and bringing you it virtually because we were going to do it in a couple of weeks live again, but now we're here because of everything going on. So that's enough about me. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Courtney and let her introduce herself, and then she'll pass it over to John and Jared and then let them get started. And again, please do feel free to add your comments and all at the bottom of the screen. And we look forward to sharing this opportunity with you all.
All right. Hey, real quick, I just want to say happy birthday, Sharon. She was a good sport as far as agreeing to doing this on her birthday.
Not like I'm going anywhere.
Well, hey, I get that. So look, yeah, Sharon, thanks for originally inviting me. So for a lot of you guys, a lot of you I've met you, or maybe we've interacted online, but I am I'm primarily an investor. So I am not a licensed agent. I am not a realtor, but I'm an investor, and I own Northshore Real Estate Investors Association, which for those of you who are on the live stream, this is coming from the Northshore Real Estate Investors, or REIA, R-E-I-A for short, because that's a mouthful, right? Northshore REIA is what we are, let me see. There we go. So that is where we are at with the live stream, right? You guys are coming in from that page. So the Northshore REIA is something I started a little bit over 2 years, well, right around 2 years ago, which it is a free networking and educational platform for investors. I joke that the REIA is similar to CE, but it's just not certified, right? For investors, because we bring a lot of the same speakers who teach realtors and help continue to educate you guys. I bring them in to speak at the REIA because I know we need that continued education. So with you guys, I just wanted to say hello, introduce myself a little bit. So my background is my very first property that I bought 5 years ago was actually a short sale, and it was a live-in flip. So for any of you who have done a short sale, you know that that's a fun way to jump into real estate, right? It's a long process. It took me about 5 months to buy it, and it stressed me out, right? But my background is in nonprofit. I didn't go to college, didn't go to, or anything like that. But instead, I worked for a nonprofit for 4 years. A year of that was overseas. And whenever I heard the story of the seller, I just hated hearing that. I wish someone would have been there to be able to help them basically avoid that situation. And so nonetheless, I got started in that. And as I started doing more real estate deals, I started noticing that there were problems associated with real estate. And my background in nonprofit just wished that I could do something. I knew I wanted to get into real estate because I know that real estate investing can change your life. And I wanted to be involved in that. And I wanted to build wealth and build a future and build a career in investing in real estate. But at the same time, I wanted to use my skill set, which is in the nonprofit world and working with people and solving problems creatively. I wanted to bring that into the arena, right? So as I started seeing these problems and I started educating myself, I learned about wholesaling. I originally got started in flipping. And then through that, I started noticing that either, I didn't always have the capital. Maybe it didn't meet my criteria of what I wanted. Maybe I was a little bit picky with what I wanted in the property, but I knew it worked for someone else. And so at that time, I started listening to podcasts while I was doing some flips. And then that's whenever I learned about wholesaling. And that's what we're going to dive deep in today. Right now, a lot of you guys probably know me through the RIA. One of my other companies, Deep Roots Property Solutions, that's the one that I do flips and I do the wholesale deals through. That is probably one of my primary companies that I work out of. A lot of you, that is the main company that pretty much I work behind. And I average around 1 to 4 deals a month especially when it comes to primarily I'm doing a good bit of right now variety, because especially with the shifting market, if you're just doing one thing, that's can really dry you up. So I do everything from flips and wholesale deals. I also do rentals. I do some owner finance stuff, and I also do some creative deals. Like, for example, Jared and John are helping me close on a deal where I am buying out 50% of a duplex in Gentilly. And anyone's like, why would you buy 50%? Well, I know if I can buy 50% ownership, I can then work toward either owning the other 50%, selling my 50% ownership, or getting the other owner to agree to co-list and sell it for a profit. So I do everything from just your normal renovations, normal rentals, but I also do specialize in the creative stuff as well. I primarily deal from Slidell to Hammond. That one in Gentilly, honestly, is my first South Shore deal, other than some consulting stuff. I don't really deal down there too much. But my background, I have done everything from, I've wholesaled land, I've wholesaled commercial, I've wholesaled obviously single family homes, and even packages of single family homes. I've done everything from small packages to large packages. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. I'm currently in my office here in Madisonville, and we are looking at building out the company a little bit more so that we can be a resource to the community, real estate agents alike, as well as investors. And so one of the biggest things is, for those of you, the Northshore RIA, my goal is to pump out a lot of content during this time. So if you guys haven't heard about us, haven't heard about our events, check them out. I'm in the process of scheduling webinars for next week, because my goal is to bring as much free content it is a content pitch, not a sales pitch or anything like that, so that during this time we can all continue to learn and understand, so we can make better decisions to protect ourselves and also to make wise choices, right? But yeah, so that's a little bit about myself. Jared and John.
Hey everybody, yeah, I'm Jared Miguez at Fleur Title. This is John Stevens. He's gonna have to step out in a minute. He's got a estate planning consultation he's gonna have to walk out and do. So I know a lot of people on this call, but if you don't know who I am and who Fleur Title is, we are now a regional title company. We started in Hammond about 10 years ago, and we've grown to 9 offices in the area. So we have Hammond and Amite, Covington, Mandeville, Slidell, which we just opened recently, Lakeview, Uptown, Metairie, and Baton Rouge. And what really sets us apart is that you have attorneys in each one of those offices that are your point of contact. So we're not a marketing rep driven company. We are attorneys in each office that build relationships with people in the community. And that allows us to do certain things like this. We can help people whenever they want to do creative investments. We can do a lot of the legal work that's required. And then whenever it comes to the closing, we can run it through our processing department, and they can actually get the closing from A to Z. But we've done a lot of these types of wholesale transactions with Courtney and other real estate investors. They can be done in several different ways, but the gist of those is that there's going to be an assignment of the contract. And I'm kind of diving right into the process. So if anybody has any more questions about Fleur de Title, you can put it in the chat, or you can contact John and I afterwards. But one more thing about Fleur de. So John Stevens, we brought him on at the beginning of last year, and he was doing a lot of transactional type work outside of the real estate business in the community. So when he came on, he brought a lot of that expertise into our office, where if there's a succession related to a transaction, John steps in and handles that. If there's somebody wants to do a bond for deed or a seller finance transaction, John can help draft all that paperwork. And then a lot of the curative stuff that gets complicated, his expertise allows him to get that done. And so an assignment of contract, and John will step in if he needs to clarify anything. An assignment of contract is basically where the buyer reserves the right to transfer those rights to a third party in that contract, usually for a price. So the best type of assignment contracts that we see are assignment contracts that stipulate that the buyer on the original contract is going to assign their rights to a third party, and it stipulates the purchase price and how the assigner or wholesaler investor is going to get paid. And so it'll actually list that the purchase price is X, assignment fee is X, and the total amount paid by the end buyer is Y at the end of the total at the end. And so when those come in, we can handle those in one of two ways. If it's actually an assignment of contract, it's going to be a one-time closing where we have the seller come in with the investor, the wholesaler, and the end buyer. And the contract, the documents are going to be selling the property from the seller to the buyer, and the wholesaler assigned investor is going to be getting their fee cut out of that, the proceeds at closing. We also can do a double close, which is a little bit different than assignment of contract. It's where the investor actually acquires ownership from the seller and then turns around and sells it to the end buyer at the end of the day. But logistically, from our end, as long as the documents are presented to us in the right way, we can handle those things efficiently. We've done several with Courtney and Sharon and some other investors in town. From our side of the equation, it's not super different as long as everything is presented to us up front. And I like to tell people, when we do these types of transactions, we like to work with investors who do these regularly and understand the process. And me and Courtney have had several conversations about this to understand how this process works and what it needs to go into it, and how the paperwork needs to be drafted allows the process to go very quickly and efficiently. And if it's not presented to us in the right way, it can cause complications. And Courtney and Sharon can talk more about that when they get on again. But basically, an assignment of contracts is just reserving the right to transfer those to a third party at the end of the day. Anything else you want to touch on?
Transferable right? Yeah. No,
Yeah.
That covers it.
So that was a quick explanation of it. And if y'all have any more questions about that, we can go into that a little further. But I'm going to kick it back to Courtney and Sharon about the ways that y'all can make money and how when y'all encounter these files.
Well, yeah, thank you so much, Jared and John. Yeah, you guys definitely are encouraged to ask questions for sure. And I'm sure more will come along the way. So we're going to throw it back to Courtney. She's going to actually talk about value in the marketplace.
So Jared and John, they're very helpful. Like I said, I do a little bit outside of wholesaling. I do some creative stuff, and they help doing everything from handling successions or whether it is anything else along the outside of it. So let's see. I want to talk about how this is valuable in the marketplace, right? So if you're following along, what it is that there is an investor. So this is an investing strategy. A lot of people, they wonder, like, is this someone, you know, we buy houses and all of a sudden a new investor buys the property. Is this, you know, is this illegal? And one of the things is John and Jared, they shared as far as the legal practice of going through it, where the investor gets it under contract. Let's say we get it under contract for X amount, and the investor then goes ahead and markets it to their buyers list of buyers that they've networked with, people that they've come across who said, yes, I'd be interested in finding off-market properties. And that's when they sign that second contract, that addendum, that assignment of contract addendum that talks about, yes, I am buying, say, Courtney's position in the contract, right? And that's when the investor is not selling a house, but they're selling their position in the contract. That's one of the biggest things with the RIA. A lot of times I try to use the RIA to encourage ethics and just morality in general in the marketplace, right? So I want to talk about how wholesalers bring value to the marketplace, and how we're, one, not acting like realtors, and two, how we can be a great asset to realtors. So generally investors are getting it at a discount, right? So let's say we're getting it under contract. So I'm going to explain the first deal that I did. Okay. So one of the very first deals that I did, it was a seller who had reached out to me. I did something called driving for dollars. I got my vehicle and I went driving around town, and I was driving through neighborhoods that I liked, and I wrote down the address of houses that looked vacant, abandoned, unkept. Like maybe there's a tarp on the roof, maybe the mailbox was overflowing, the grass was higher than it should be, right? And I'm not just talking like, oh, they didn't cut the grass this week, but I'm talking like boarded windows, stuff like that, right? Maybe abandoned cars in the front lot, whatever. I remember very specifically this yard had about 20 trash bags that I could tell had been there for a long time. So if someone did yard work but didn't do it, they had toys all throughout the front yard. The house was just unkept, right? So I wrote down the address, and I went on the assessor's website for St. Tammany Parish, and I looked up the owner, and I could see that the mailing address for the property was different from the physical address. So that told me that the owner who was receiving the property tax bills was not receiving it at the property, so they most likely lived somewhere else. And lo and behold, it was a rental. So I'd sent them a note just saying, hey, you know, starting through the area, this is an area that I would like to buy in. And from there, I went ahead and said, hey, if you have any interest in selling, I'd like to talk with you further. Just very simple, right? Reached out to the owner. They reached out to me, sent them one letter in the mail. They called me, and we got talking. They said, look, I own 2 houses with an ex. We're no longer together. And because they were never legally married, there was no divorce settlement, right? A divorce settlement usually says house A goes here, house B goes here, you know, whatever. But so they had 2 mortgages and 2 properties. They were tied together, and they had no judge to say, this is how it's going to get lined up. So they just wanted to be separated from each other. So they had a pain problem right there. And then secondly, they had a tenant in there, and they were the type of landlords that kind of stumbled into it and who weren't really they hadn't really approached the landlording process effectively. For example, it was significantly below market rent. So a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, it was about $1,200 would be normal market rent. They were renting it for $800, and they were allowing the tenant to pay $400 on the first and $400 on the 15th. Well, when you know, say $700 mortgage is due on the first, well, you're having to cover the tenant, right? So not only did they have that, but they hadn't even walked in the house in 4 years, and they were just like, I don't even know what it looks like. I'm just sick to my stomach about the whole situation. I want out, right? They just didn't have the stomach for the whole thing. They knew they handled it improperly. I said, look, how can I help you? She said, I just need my payoff plus $10,000 to pay my ex out and to be done with it. If I could get that, I would be tickled, thrilled. So I said, okay, can you get me in the property with the tenant? And long and behold, I did. They had a Great Dane. I almost could have rode the Great Dane around the house. Long story short, there were some issues, but I said, yes, I can make that $70,000 work. So I got under contract for that $70,000. And that's when I then reached out to a flipper in the area, and I said, hey, look, here's a property. This is what I saw as far as repairs needed. And that came from my experience with doing flips. With that being said, not everyone has that experience. And so that's when I often recommend that people outsource that. either to someone who's a veteran flipper or to a contractor, you know, to kind of get different eyes on it, to help them be able to understand those renovation costs. But I reached out to them and said, hey, look, they need some work, but it's mostly just tenant turnover and some renovations to get it ready to sell. Are you interested? I'd like to offer it to you. My position in the contract would be for sale. Your total price would be $77,500. If you recall, I had it under contract for $7,000. And so he said, we set up a time for them to walk the property. And I had told the seller up front, I said, either myself will buy it or one of the investors that I work with will buy it. Are you okay with that? She said, yes, I just want this thing gone. And so long story short, we closed. Actually, tomorrow's Good Friday. I was just telling Paul, I said, hey, look, Good Friday was when I closed my first deal, because I remember going to the bank and cashing the check for $7,500 when we went to closing that morning and being like, yeah, it really is a Good Friday, right? So long story short, whenever we went to closing everything, the seller was thrilled to be able to have that problem solved in their life, where she didn't have to go through the normal retail selling process. She got out of the situation quickly and with ease. And she understood that she could have listed it. She understood she could have gone through that process. She just wanted to not have to deal with anything and be able to exchange some of her equity for some convenience, but also just be able to streamline the process, right? And it was also a win for the investor on the back end, the end buyer, because they were able to get some inventory to be able to do a renovation, right? And it actually they renovated the house, and I'm sure the neighbors were happy because they probably weren't excited to have an overgrown grass that they kept stuff out front, right? So to give you an idea with that, wholesaling is generally a marketing position where they're doing a ton of marketing to find owners who need to sell to an investor, because truly we're looking for, like, say, 5% of the community. I don't know if 5% is really the number, but the idea is that not everyone needs to sell at a discount to us, right? So generally, I'm not looking for properties. I am looking for problems, and problems that can be solved by an investor, not necessarily, you know, sometimes they do just as well, and they can just list it with the realtor. So I want to talk to you about some common distress situations. But before I do, I just want to remind you that every industry has a wholesale component. Like, for example, car dealerships, they go buy cars at wholesale prices from, say, auctions. They turn around and they offer them to the public, right? We have, say, retail, they go buy stuff at wholesale price and they offer it for sale. Anything along those lines. Almost every industry has a wholesale component. And so that is the concept here. It is dealing with the scenarios where we can buy at a discount and then we can resell our position in the contract. And but here's the thing is, if we don't sell it to an end buyer at a price point that would make sense, then it's not a good deal and no one's going to buy it, right? We don't make money unless, now granted, I'm a cash buyer myself, and so I still buy flips. I have a flip under contract right now. I just sold one 2 weeks ago. Like, I still buy properties and take them down myself. And so I could have taken down this property myself as well. It's just one of those, so if that makes sense, it's just a little bit difference there. But just understanding that wholesalers are in every industry, and figuring out, if you're a realtor, figuring out how this wholesale compartment happens in the real estate industry, it's not going anywhere in that concept that it is legal. But there is a way that my goal as someone who's in the industry is I want to continue to encourage ethical practices. And through that, it is something that I want to encourage, like, other investors, you know, to do it properly. Just like some realtors who, every industry has people who shed a negative light on it, right? So that's where our goal is, to continue to educate so that people can understand the proper way of going about it, right? Because here's the thing is, we're dealing with people who are in a sensitive place in life. And at the end of the day, if you're just out to make a quick buck, honestly, those people fizzle out. There's a high turnover rate because they don't have, one, the staying power to do the work. And then secondly, honestly, when people have bad intentions, they don't usually last long, right? They either get found out in the industry or whatnot, right? So I want to talk about some pain points for these sellers that kind of build an avatar of what an ideal client for a wholesale transaction would be. So here's some of the common ones that I've worked with. So let's talk, so you've got pre-foreclosure. So that might be a foreclosure with a bank. That might be a foreclosure from an HOA lien, any other type of lien. You can also have a property tax foreclosure. We've got tired landlords. I've actually done a lot with pre-foreclosures and a lot with tired landlords. Those are probably, that and probates are probably my top 3 that I do work with. So you've got tired landlords, someone who, for example, with that woman, she just wanted to stop being a landlord. She wasn't landlording correctly, and she had not done anything to the house for the last few years, and it was just ready to be, she was ready to be done. Another situation was the divorce scenario, right? She had multiple factors. She was an absentee owner, so she lived away from the house. She had a tenant in there, and she was tired of being a landlord, and hadn't done work, delayed maintenance and whatnot to the house, but also she had gone through, quote unquote, a divorce, right? And so those were all, actually, there was also a health situation. And so that was another reason why she wanted as minimal involvement with the sale as possible, because they had a health scenario. So that was I guess you could say, a sudden life event or whatever. So things like job relocations, because if someone has a house, they list or sell with a realtor, and then all of a sudden they go move somewhere, say to Texas, well, then they're juggling 2 mortgages. But what if their last house was maybe had too many repairs, or they can't sell it? Then they're trying to juggle 2 mortgages. What does that look like, right? Does that put their new job at jeopardy because they're going to face foreclosure? So that's when sometimes job relocations need some assistance because they don't have the funds to handle those, like say handle 2 mortgages at once. Sometimes it's sudden job loss, and then in life events like maybe health or anything like that. We've got major repairs. There's some properties where it is, I've been in some properties where I've been in multiple houses where there's still Katrina roofs, meaning the roof was penetrated, they put a tarp over it, and it's still that place. 2 times people were recently living in those houses within maybe a month of when I had walked them. And I'm talking mold, I've done everything. There's times when I've walked out of houses with fleas, ticks, pin on mask or whatever. It's one of those things where, you guys know, realtors, you've seen some things in houses, major repairs, right? That's really easy to understand. I have to, I have a little bit of a list, but I have to say this slowly. Hoarder houses, not to be confused with an inappropriate house, but hoarder houses are very common because they are one of those things where usually I'll tell you this, the number one thing I've seen with hoarder houses is that there's a lot of shame involved with the sellers. And so it's very difficult for them to be very public with, advertising it, right? And also, how do you take pictures? How do you do showings with that, right? I've been in houses with like 5 to 6 to 8 feet tall worth of stuff, and I couldn't even get into rooms because stuff was just barricading it, right? We've got, certain stigmatized houses. I've been in houses that have had suicides or deaths. Maybe they were quirky. I've had to actually call the narcotics unit to ask them, what do I do? Because there's potential this house is a meth house. Like, how do I go about it? So things like that where it's stigmatized, where it is not going to sell in the retail market due to maybe some disclosures. And also squatters. I've dealt with squatters before. Those are fun. And, I've learned how I can utilize the law to do that. So these are some pain points. There's more, but those are, bankruptcy. There's some other ones I can go through, but generally, if you're seeing these pain points, it's generally someone who says, I need to sell. If I don't sell by X date, something will happen. A lot of times with the hoarder houses are like, if I don't sell by, X date, I'm going to have, they're constantly having health issues because of the hoarding situation, or maybe the job relocation. If I don't sell by this date, I'm going to be juggling 2 mortgages and I can't handle it. Maybe the foreclosure. If I don't do by this date, I'm going to lose it. So here's my main point, especially to realtors, is we're not looking to take away work from you. We want what you don't want. Generally, when I speak with realtors, they laugh, is they go ahead and they jump on and they say, hey, oh man, I can't tell you how many houses I've been into that where it was like a hoarder house. I walk in, it was so gross. I was like trying not to gag. And I just knew I didn't want this listing at all because I could just see the mountain of work, right? You guys know what I'm talking about? Hey, RJ, I know you just asked that question about finding out the ARV. this is more of one that is not, we're not necessarily jumping into too many of those details. Our goal is more so the focus of this conversation is more so wholesalers and agents working to get together in a way where they can do it profitably and cohesively. I'm happy to jump on here afterwards and I'll answer that. But so again, guys, the main point here is, generally speaking, we're looking for sellers who are not geared to sell retail wise. Whether, like, there have been times when people do not want the public marketing, right? Like maybe a landlord doesn't want their tenants to move out because they don't want them to like know that they're selling, because maybe the sale may not go through, right? And so here's one of those things where we're looking for those scenarios where it's not a good fit for them to list retail wise, and they're looking for a solution to their problem. So here's some additional ways that we bring value outside of, you know, lining up to where the house gets, where we buy the house or whatever it looks like, or maybe the partner that we work with, the investor we work with, will be the end buyer and buy it. But one of the things is we often offer that we will pay the closing costs. So the seller's settlement statement, I generally don't include property taxes with this, because that comes with a little bit of responsibility, right? If you own the home between, you know, January through June 1st, I'm generally going to have you pay for your own property taxes, and that's going to be prorated. But I will say the settlement statements for maybe paying off liens or just the attorney fees, I'll generally include that in my negotiations, where we'll pay the seller's closing costs. So it's generally that $70,000 that was offered. It'll generally be that $70,000 minus just maybe the proration of taxes. So usually it's a cash buyer situation. I'm gonna say 99.9% it is a cash buyer. Now, what I mean by a cash buyer, literal cash, I'm not talking like brown paper bags of cash, but like cash liquidity, right? Like say someone has $50,000 in the bank and they use that. Maybe it's a line of credit, and maybe it's a private lender. Maybe it's a professional hard money lender. These are scenarios where it doesn't have to go through the normal conventional or traditional like lending process, where there's, you know, you've got to go through, you know, FHA, Fannie, 203K, anything along those lines. One of the reasons we don't do that is because when you deal with an institutional loan on the back end, a lot of times there's an issue with some of the processes that go into place. For example, the assignment part or the double close part, okay? So generally 99.9% of the time it is a cash buyer. I have been able to squeeze in a you know, a loan on the back end, but I would say that that is more of an advanced strategy. And if you're not doing that regularly, I would highly recommend to avoid that, because there's a lot of hurdles. Usually the close is within 2 to 3 weeks tops. I've done as little as 3 days. Just recently just did one within 1 week. We did a succession and a close in a real estate transaction. We contracted on a Friday, and by the next Friday we had done, and Jared and them did a great job pushing that succession through and that real estate transaction through, even with the whole COVID situation. So the other thing is we're buying it as is, so we're not asking the realtor to fix anything. You know, where that house, that $70,000 house, we're not asking for the, for the seller to do anything. We're not going to say, hey, you know, 4 feet up and below where the, you know, Great Dane went to the bathroom on the wall, we're not asking you to repair that, right? We're not asking that. We're saying, hey, this is going to be our offer, knowing that it needs X, Y, Z, rather than saying, hey, this is the offer, let's go do our inspection and come back and adjust the price. It is basically price first, right? The inspection period is different. In general, I'm gonna bounce back to that in a second, because I'm gonna talk about the value for buyers in a second, and how it is with buyers. But so generally though, the repairs are gonna be factored into the offer. And then it's gonna be selling with the seller's timeline. Sometimes that is because they need it quick. Sometimes that means, hey, I just need flexibility because I'm trying to move into this other house or this other situation. So what I'm gonna do here is with I want to finish up talking about additional value that we bring for sellers, but I also want to talk a little bit about how we bring value for buyers, and then I want to talk about how we bring value for you. So there is a level that we can inherit tenants. I know it's not a lot of people's preference. I'm telling you, like right now, it's not a big preference because like not being able to evict and stuff, but it has been done before. It's very limited on showings, and so sometimes if that's a problem for people, that can can be a problem, solution that we provide. And then lastly, we can assist with relocations, meaning there's times where I've taken a seller who, she was facing foreclosure. She had multiple issues and her family had all but abandoned her. It was a hoarder house situation. And I think I took her 3 to 4 different times to go to apartments, go looking for a place. And so whenever we bought her house and I did the assignment transaction with my end buyer and everything, by that point we had lined it up to where she ended up finding a mobile home and that she liked, and she wanted to take the proceeds from the sale to buy it and where she owned it outright. And she was so thrilled and so happy with it. So what we did from there is, she was like, Courtney, can you come look at it? I'm worried like that I'm not buying a good deal or that it has issues. And so I just helped, say, hey, look, I'm happy just to come take a look at it and tell you whether I would buy it or not. Just things like that. We were more so a trusted advisor rather than just a buyer, right? We weren't just there to do a transaction. It becomes very relational. I can't tell you how many times where I've bought, I brought moving boxes, or I've helped do X, Y, Z. I've helped them figure out options. Because a lot of times when people are losing their house, they can't jump right into owning a house again. And I'm not going to buy the house and put them on the street. So I'm trying to help them, whether that's connecting with the realtor so that they can downsize properly, that's helping them find a place to rent, things along those lines, right? So I'm going to give you a few case examples, because here's the thing is, why would someone sell to me at a deep discount and from there and not list with the realtor or do something along those lines, right? I'm going to give you 2 examples here, okay? So I had one deal as a house in, well, both of these examples are going to be in Slidell. So this one, it was a house. I'll tell you again, it's a lot of marketing, right? And I do a lot of different marketing ways that I market, but ideally, I'm looking all over for these problems, right? And so this was a house I found on Facebook Marketplace of all places. And it was a seller who, it just said fixer-upper, and it didn't really have a picture of the house. It had a picture of like the survey or something like that. And I contacted, said, look, this was done this was posted 3+ months ago. I doubt it's even still available, but I just want to check. Hey, is this still available? The seller came back and said, yes, it is, but everyone says it's a tear down. I said, you know what? I've looked at a lot of properties that people thought were tear downs, but let me be the judge of that, right? And sometimes it very much was a tear down, but sometimes it wasn't, right? And so I went and saw the property. They told me where the key was, and I went, and the house was vacant. I went, and the house was, it had some issues, right? Like it had some holes in the roof where there was completely like molded rooms. And it had been not maintained for a good while. What it was is their parents had lived in this house, and just over time, one got sick, then the next one got sick, and it was they were having a hard time keeping with maintenance. The next thing you know, it just became vacant. Parents passed away, and it just got worse, right? You know how that happens, right? When people let them sit. And so they were asking, I ran the numbers, and what they were asking, I was like, that's hard to make work. I said, look here, I immediately called them and I said, hey, do you have a phone number? Can I call you? And I called her and I said, ma'am, I'm walking through this, and I'm like, I'm not seeing the tall tale signs that I've learned from contractors and just experience that this is a tear down. This is absolutely something that can be renovated. And so what I did was I gave her a call and just said, look, I'd like to make an offer. And she was thrilled, because they thought that it was going to be a tear down. And the fact that the house is still able to be renovated just really helped them feel a little bit of hope there, right? So we agreed upon a price. And what I did is I sent it out to my cash buyer, said, hey, who's interested? This would be a great fix up to rent or fix up to sell. Your call, great school district, all this stuff, right? But it does need some work. And so from there, I went ahead and eventually assigned my rights in the contract. This one actually had a realtor involved. What it was is, I believe I got this under contract for $21,000. And I said, I ended up assigning it for $25,000. So there was a $4,000 spread. And what I did there was I ended up paying out the realtor for bringing the buyer to the situation. I had a realtor reach out to me and said, hey, I know a guy who definitely is interested. How can we work together? I said, hey, I'd love to get you paid out of this. This is what it would look like. And it just happened out to where that situation was, we were able to work with the realtor where they got paid out. I'm going to talk in a second how that, I'm going to actually break stuff down or how you get paid. But when we went to the closing table, all of this had been done through phone calls, Facebook messages, things like that, because the house was vacant. And the seller lived, I was Slidell, seller lived in Mandeville. So when it came time to go to closing, I hadn't met the seller yet. And it was one of those things where I was like, okay, you know, you can kind of do this a little virtually, right? But, you know, we had done DocuSign for contracts and everything. So what we had done was schedule it to where I was going to be doing the closing, and my end buyer was going to be, you know, I was assigning it to them, so they were going to be, you know, bringing the funding and signing things. But I still wanted to go there to meet the sellers and just get to know them and follow through with solving the problem, right? So with that, I am going to share something that was a pivoting point for me, because here's the thing is, what had actually happened with that scenario, the seller and her husband had co-signed for the parents to have a loan on that property. And I usually, when I present to Jared and them my file, I usually do a good bit of back study. I do a little bit of preliminary title. And for whatever reason, I did not see that they had a loan on this property. I thought they owned it outright. So in my mind, what they were going to net from my offer was different. But through the title abstract, Jared and them found where it was tied through, where it was tied through to the kids who I was dealing with, the sellers, the son and daughter who co-signed. And next thing I know, we go to the day before, we go to the title company, and I find out that my sellers are bringing $16,000 to the table. To get rid of this house, they brought $16,000 to the table. So I do a lot of closings with Fleur. Their office staff know me, the support staff know me. And I walk in the door, and Abby in his office said, "Your seller cannot wait to meet you." I was like, "Yeah." I said, "Okay." And so I go in there, and I mean, everyone in the family is hugging my neck. And I'm like, at the end of the day, I go back in my truck, and I mean, they flooded online reviews for me and everything along those lines, because they were so thrilled, because they thought they were gonna have to bring, I think it was somewhere around the lines of $30,000 to $45,000 additionally to the table, because if it was a tear down, they were gonna have to tear it down. The land value and all that stuff just wasn't there. And they were so concerned with what they were gonna have to pay, what was due on the mortgage, right? So they were thrilled, right? And that goes to show you that solving someone's pain goes a lot further than the possibility of making money, right? The relief of pain goes a lot further, right? Another example that I have is, I'm telling you that, and here's the thing is, that seller still reaches out to me on a normal basis, just so thrilled with the transaction, okay? That's just another example. And that's crazy, and you think that that's like not real, but it's real. They brought $16,000 to the table, and they're still one of my most vocal sellers, when usually people don't have to bring money to the table, they actually walk away with money. I had another one, actually this was my first transaction in the beginning of this year. This wasn't a wholesale deal, it could have been one, but it's just showing you the situation where there is a problem, pain point. So what it was is a gentleman who last summer, I bought the property in January. Last summer, there was a guy who was facing foreclosure and property tax foreclosure. I'd reached out to them, and when I consult with sellers, I usually give them a handful of options. I say, like, you know, maybe here's 3 ways you could handle this. And if you did this, you could stay in the house. If you did this, you could, you know, sell with a realtor. If you did this, you could do it with me, whatever. I usually lay out a variety of options. And from there, I just say, hey, whatever works best for you. Now, sometimes in the very beginning, I'll just say, hey, we're just not a good fit. I don't see why you should be selling to someone like me. I usually kind of leave them to go list with the realtor, because if you don't need to sell to someone like me, then there's no reason why you should. So what I did was, I'd given him those options last year, and what he did was he kind of kicked the can down the road by making some payments so he can stay in the place a little bit longer. The long story short, it came across my desk again in public record that he was facing foreclosure again around October of last year. And so I go, okay, and I pull out his phone number from my CRM, and I go to call him. And I mean, left messages, couldn't find the dude. So I reached out to some of the neighbors, and I said, hey, anyone see so-and-so? I can't find him. Well, they said, oh, haven't you heard? He's in jail. I was like, oh, okay. And so I went into Jared and John. I said, how can I go to jail legally? How can I go like visit someone in jail to make this transaction happen? Long story short, I got to bring Jared and them. We did a transaction this January at the Parish Jail in Covington because the guy was facing foreclosure, and between, just the timeline that he was in there just to even get arraigned and stuff, and the holidays and the delays there, and the basically the process where he was at in the foreclosure, he was very nervous that while he was in there, he was going to get foreclosed on, and his items that were in the unit, it was a condo unit, he was very afraid that he would not get like family heirlooms and stuff like that. He didn't care about the furniture like he did, but to the extent he was like, there's just a box that I really want to get. And he didn't really have any friends or family who he could store it with. And so he's like, I'm really worried about that, because a lot of times in foreclosure, people just put their head down and they just like, lose it, right? They go in denial. Anyway, and I said, look, I don't want to see you lose this property. But here's the thing is I want to be able to, stop this foreclosure, allow you to be able to get those items. And then from there, go ahead and, finalize the transaction. He put a little bit of money in his pocket. We were able to close on that. The guy was able to get his, we had to do a eviction because his crazy ex-girlfriend was in the unit. And the marshal, when he showed up to help us do the eviction that morning, the guy had bonded out of jail and was there. And the marshal was all, is this going to be hostile? I said, no, man, like, we helped this guy. The marshal kept saying, I can't believe it. I thought this guy, the previous owner, I thought he was going to be mad, and I said, the guy there was all just chatting with us and we were having, a good time because we helped solve a problem. Does that make sense? We put money in his pocket, we stopped the foreclosure, allowed him to get those heirlooms. So here's the bottom line is the value that we bring is it's all about solving problems. Honestly, if there's not a problem there, I'm usually going to refer people to sell retail with, with an agent, right? But I'm looking for those problems, okay? So that's how we bring value to the marketplace. Generally speaking, I want to dive into how you can make money with this. And I want to kind of dive into different ways that you can monetize this and things along those lines. But here's the thing is, I want to make a quick distinction. I'm doing good on time here. Okay. I made notes, you guys, because I'm always forget to add certain things, right? I see some questions. I want to, before I transition, so that was talking about value in the marketplace for, in general. I see RJ has some questions. As far as the actual paperwork, here's my biggest recommendation with actual contracts. So I'm not a realtor. I don't use LREC contract. I generally use a 1 to 2 page contract because I usually have sellers sign those on the front of my truck, and I want to explain each one in each part of the contract to them in a way that it's protected for both of us, but it's also in layman's terms, right? And so I do have a specialized contract that I use. It's a purchase and sale agreement that's been overlooked by many attorneys, including Fleur Lee. So generally when I do that, I look at stuff that I am saying, hey, I want to be able to help solve their problem, but not add a whole lot to their plate. Meaning I'm not trying to schedule a ton of showings or, hey, I need you to sign X, Y, Z. When it goes down to that, you guys, I usually don't share my contracts, mostly because my background in property management, so I did nonprofit work, but I also worked as a property manager for 4 years. What I do is, whenever I do out a lease, I would walk through, so many people just sign, but what I want to do is, because I truly want to help solve people's problems and help them, is I walk through it every little bit. Being a property manager, I learned to walk through every single part of the lease and the contract. So whenever I do a purchase and sale agreement, I walk through every single part of the contract with the seller so they understand what's going on. I tell them up front, hey, either I'm going to close it, because you remember, I'm a cash buyer. We're going to talk in a second how not every wholesaler is a actual cash buyer. I'm a cash buyer, but I also have a large amount of cash buyers and investors that I work alongside. I say, look, or I said, my goal here is to solve this problem for you. It is either going to be myself or one of the investors that I partner with is going to close. Does that work with you? And a lot of times the answer is, I just want this thing gone, girl, get it gone. Like, that's usually where we're at relationally, right? So if you're looking for contracts or anything like that, I'm going to recommend, you can find stuff online, but you ultimately want to bring it before Jared. In the state of Louisiana, contracts, and Jared, you can talk about this if need be, you can put in the comments or whatever, or if you want to jump on. But generally a contract is assignable. But a lot of times I want to see it written in there. Unless it says it cannot be assigned, that is usually a situation where you want to address that contract. But generally, even if it's not signed, put in there, that is assignable. But I usually just put it in there for good measure that this contract is assignable. Here's the thing is, so by saying all that, I say you want two things to happen with these contracts. You want it to be something that you can specifically, explain to someone else. Because if you can't explain it, what is it worth, right? You're going to get these questions and you're not really helping someone if you say, oh, I don't know what that means. So go figure it out, right? The next thing is you want to go ahead and make it a contract that you're comfortable and that you can understand. Then you also want to have an attorney look over, because I'm not an attorney. It does not matter if I say, yep, that's a good one, because honestly, at the end of the day, I'm not going to be someone who you want in your corner if you have issues with your contract and you have to go in front of a court of law, right? So you want to have an attorney look it up. A title company attorney is more than fine, okay? And Jared and John can work there as well. As far as the assignment contract, again, you can find those online, tons of places like Bigger Pockets or different Facebook groups, and then you can have an attorney look that over. I generally do not use the LREC unless there is a realtor involved, in the sense that the realtor is a seller or a buyer. And I'll dive into that in a second, because generally whenever I have a realtor involved who's bringing the buyer, they're not usually in control of the contracts. And that is something I want to make a distinction of. So as far as, I want to kind of reiterate here that the purpose of this conversation here is more so teaching on how realtors and wholesalers can work together. And that's more the purpose of it rather than wholesaling 101, okay? Kind of want to make that distinction here, because have you ever had any sellers get angry at close when they found out about? 2 weeks ago, I had a seller, they actually did like a commercial type video on my Deep Roots page. I made a good amount on that one, and they were just like, hey, I want you to make a good amount on this because you help solve such a problem. Here's an idea here is your value in the marketplace is the type of problems you solve. For example, if you could fix just a normal watch, let's say one you get from Walmart, say the person at Walmart can put a $5 battery in there, you're probably getting paid $7, $8 an hour, right? Because you're not solving a large problem, you're solving something very simple. But let's say you know how to repair a Rolex, right? Or whatever the fancier watch beyond a Rolex. I have a G-Shock, that's about it, right? But if you knew how to work the back ends of a Rolex and you knew how to fix that, and you were very, specialized, and you had a lot of tools that you brought to the marketplace, don't you think you'd be paid more an hour than $7, $8 an hour? Yes. So the more value you bring to a situation, the more that there's an opportunity there to make money. Now, at the same time, this here is not making, I honestly, when I go into it, I do not necessarily care about make money. There are often times where I have done deals where I've helped people, and I do free consultations often, right? With sellers, with realtors, with other investors often, because I'm out here solving problems. My background in doing nonprofit work has helped me in this regard, because I used to help people for free. And there has been a little bit of transition for me, because that I am now helping people and making money out of it, right? But here's the thing is, that's where ethics come into play, right? Because if you're just trying to pull one over someone's back, or make money off of someone's back, then like there's often times when I've been able to help a seller, and we've done things, whatever, to, maybe there's times when we've given them cash so they could get a U-Haul truck. There's times when we've been able to do things along those lines to be able to help them. We've helped negotiate some stuff for them, as far as like maybe get some discount on some liens or whatever, just to help maximize what they put in their pocket. But at the same time, we are bringing value to the situation. So with that being said, I want to make a quick distinction here. No, I've never had anyone get angry, for the record, because again, if you're solving problems and you're being a trusted advisor who is solving a problem and not someone who is being transactional, just trying to make money off of someone, it is very clear when that happens. Okay. So I want to make a quick distinction here. There are, so the term acquisition specialist is a technical term. The most layman term is a wholesaler. I do not see myself as a wholesaler. I'm an investor and my goal is to be a transaction coordinator. What that means is I want to be able to make money. When I see any deal, I want to be able to know how to do something, whether that is flip it, wholesale it, whether that is keep it as a rental, do something creatively with owner financing, or solve title issues, whatever that looks like. I want to be able to know how to handle the situation, right? So part of that is having a lot of tools in my tool belt, right? So I spend a good amount of money on my education. I spend a lot of time networking, a lot of time spending on webinars like this or attending webinars like this. So here's the thing is, I mentioned earlier that my background was primarily as a cash buyer. I was a flipper first, and then I also started adding wholesale deals. So I still flip, but wholesaling is just one of many things that I do, right? But sometimes there are wholesalers where the only thing they do is wholesaling, or the very first real estate investing strategy that they do is wholesaling. On face value, that is not wrong, right? We all start somewhere, and education is plentiful, right? You can learn and you can do things on those lines. A lot of times what I do is whenever you're new to something, I often recommend that people outsource where they do not have experience. For example, talking about the end value of a property, the estimated value of a property, that very first house, the $70,000 house, houses similar to that were selling for on average $130,000 to $140,000 in the area with similar finishes. So getting it at $70,000, the owner knew. I said, hey, do you understand you can go list it at a discount and still make more money? She understood that she had those options, right? But she wanted to exchange equity for the convenience of the process, right? So, but not everyone can either have access to the molestable comps. And I often tell people don't trust estimates. You can look at recently sold on Zillow, but things like that. So not a lot of people either know the skill set of, say, a CMA for you realtors, or ARV, after repair value, what this house would be worth if it was fixed up in excellent condition, right? A lot of people struggle with that. Honestly, you could lay the numbers out in front of 5 people, the same numbers, and they would come up with 5 different answers, is my opinion, because I think a lot of it is subjective to a degree. One of the things that I wanted to make a distinction though is, there's a few different ways that you can outsource. You can outsource, we're helping you find out what those repair costs can be. A lot of times these days, I don't even give out a full, whenever I present a property to buyers, I don't give out a full buyer's layout to my buyers as far as how much exactly it's going to cost to repair. Because here's the thing is, how much it costs for me to repair a roof and how much it might cost you to repair a roof versus XYZ, or hey, I might do, I might not even paint the inside of the house, or I may go repair completely replace the kitchen. You may take out this wall. I may not take out this wall, things along those lines. So at the end of the day, it's not always black and white as far as everyone's going to repair it the same way. But what I do is I say, hey, here are the necessities of some things that are an issue that you should pay attention to. If you wanted to add more value, these are some things that you should consider. I generally address things in that line item, but I don't necessarily say, okay, it's going to cost you this much. But I generally say, hey, it's going to be a minimum of at least this much. Because, hey, if the roof has a hole in it and, you've got no working HVAC and this and this, I look forward to sharing, I look forward to painting a picture, right? And sharing those things, but I'm not going to say, hey, this is the exact. Now, I do know some people who get like a bid and they say, hey, here's a recent bid of all the things, But what I do is I try to take about 40 to 50 pictures, and I take pictures of everything. I don't hide anything, okay? So I got off track there, but here's the thing, guys, is there's a distinction. And I think every business person should make this distinction in their own industry. But there's people who do things at a business and professional level, and there's people who do this at a hobby level, okay? And especially when it comes to real estate investing, wholesaling, I often say, hey, there are wholesalers who do this as a hobby, and there's wholesalers who do this as a business. I personally do this at a business level. I have an acquisitions company. Deep Roots Property Solutions is an acquisitions company. I am constantly marketing, looking for properties that I can buy at a discount. I'm looking for those problems, right? Not necessarily properties, but problems. When I then get those properties, I then decide, am I going to flip them? Am I going to wholesale them? Am I going to do something like that, right? So, but my company, I have, the office, we do, I was actually about to bring on an employee during this time. But, there's just different things along those lines, right? Where we are constantly doing business versus there may be some people who, hey, they might do just 1 to 2 wholesale deals a year, and it's more so like a hobby that I do every now and then. It's part-time. It's something along those lines. I do this again, full-time. So here's the distinction is for those realtors who are looking at working with wholesalers and wholesalers who are looking at working with realtors, there's a distinction here that you want to make. You want to understand who is doing this like a business and who is doing this as a hobby. The reason why I bring this up is that there is a difference, and there's going to be some noticeable differences there. Just like with a realtor is noticing a realtor who does this full-time, who's a top producer versus someone who's a realtor part-time. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a different approach that they both take, right? So I'm going to talk about something why, not obviously people want to make money, but I'm going to talk with a reason why you want to find ways to make money with this that may be just beyond the normal and reasonable reason, which is of course we just all want, to make money, right? We here in my business, we track something called KPIs. These are what's called key performance indicators. I was talking with Keller Williams a while back. They called it something different. I think everyone kind of in different places might call it different, but a common business term is KPIs, key performance indicators. What that means is, maybe I spend X amount in marketing and I do it in these, different channels. I want to say, hey, how many appointments am I going on from, the mail we're sending out or from this ad that we did? What is that? What is the performance that I'm getting from that marketing? How many we do like a scorecard, we do like how many appointments do we go on? How many offers did we make? How many contracts are we under? How many deals did we close? How many contacts did we make? Things like that, right? So it's very detailed because we want to make sure that we're treating this like a business, right? So that's big picture business wise. You're spending money on marketing, presumably. As a realtor, you're either spending effort and hustle, or you are spending, literal money on advertising. And that hustle and effort could be like, say, farming, word of mouth, following up past clients, things like that. But the money you could be sending could be pitting on maybe an event for a neighborhood, or it could be, a billboard. It could be some mail that you're sending out to neighbors, something like that. You're spending money on marketing, right? Marketing makes businesses go round. So with that being said is you're paying for marketing one way or the other. When it comes down to it, you guys, in your business, when you're pitting money out, and now more than ever, when you're pitting money out, you should be finding ways to get money back in. For those of you who watch Shark Tank, Mr. Wonderful says this, but my understanding is one of my mentors, Pete Fortunato, he's like a mentor in the sense where I go listen to conferences and listen to stuff that he's taught on, is Pete Fortunato is a godfather in creative real estate and things along those lines. But Pete Fortunato is actually where the term originated from, where that Mr. Wonderful says a lot and made very popular, which is, I treat my money like little soldiers. I want them to leave my account, say my wallet, my bank account. When they go out, I want them to take captive more, soldiers, more money and bring it back, right? I put $20 out. I don't want just 20 coming back. I want more coming back, right? If I'm spending money on marketing, putting money out there, I want to be able to get a return. That is when you make a profit, right? So obviously that's business 101. But here's the thing that a lot of people don't think about. A lot of people just market like crazy. A lot of people they're just spinning their wheels, doing all these different marketing channels. And in the beginning, I did that. But now what I do is I track my marketing channels and I say, hey, I go and I look at all the deals that I'm doing and I say, hey, where am I getting paid out from, right? A lot of times what it does is allows me to understand what's working and what's not, right? Because if something's not working and it hasn't worked for the last 6 months or a year, should you still be throwing money at it, right? No, especially in these times when the market may or may not be shifting, different things on those lines. We don't know how long. You want to be very purposeful. There's a lot of people, especially if your income is limited right now, you want to be very purposeful with money going out. So with that being said, what happens? Okay, so follow with me here. Realtors, you are spending money, and I'll even share this in the light of wholesalers. You are spending money marketing to go get into a seller's, say front yard, their living room, or over the phone to see if they're interested in either listing or selling. What happens is when you're there, let's say you're a realtor and you spend money. Let's say you spend $200 to send out some mail in a neighborhood where you want to get listings, and you get a phone call and you go there and you walk into the house, and it is a hoarder situation where there is stuff piled high. You can't even really see the walls. And there's also some very obvious deferred maintenance. The pool motor is burned up. The pool is green and has weird stuff growing in it. You've got just issues, right, throughout the house. And it's a high-end neighborhood, say 300 plus thousand. And the sellers, honestly, with hoarder situations, you can't say, hey, clean it out, because guess what? It's just going to replenish, right? The sellers had health issues, so they didn't want a lot of people walking through the house. And so what are you going to do? You spent money to get there, but what do you do, right? So what you want to do is you want to go ahead and make sure that you are finding a way to still provide service to them, instead of just saying, hey, I can't help you here. I can't do open house here. I can't take pictures. I can't really help. So what you want to do is you want to find a way, how can you still salvage this to where you can still get a return on those marketing dollars? Because if you're not converting those opportunities, you're missing out on opportunities and you're leaving money on the table. So just like you have referral partners, say for a mortgage lender that'll help a client get approved, even if maybe they have difficult credit situations or whatnot, you have referral partners that are helping you. So with someone like myself, say like a wholesaler, working with them, you can salvage some of these, what you would call maybe a dead lead, a lost cause. So here are some ways. I'm gonna tell you real quick about 3 ways. But business-wise, if you're not converting those dead leads into some type of revenue, you're leaving money on the table. End of the point there. Okay. So here's the first way you can make money with working alongside wholesalers. Okay. This is important. If you're not taking notes, it's a good time to take notes. Okay. So generally, I get a contract I get a property under contract, and then what I do is I generally do 2 things. Is I market it to my private buyers list. So I send out an email blast with information on the property and what I'm asking for someone to take over my position in the contract. I also now have a Facebook page that I'll post it on, right? That says, this is an off-market deal. I'll put on there that this is an assignment, a contract transaction, or a contract for sale. And what I do there is I'll often say, hey, realtors and property managers welcomed. If you have a cash buyer investor interested, let me know. And here's what I'm going to do. So this is a way that you can get easy commission. And I've been told that, again, I'm not a realtor. I've been told this is very similar to being dealing with like FSBOs, for sale by owner. What I do is I just had one recently. It was a house in Hammond. It was for sale. It was offered. The contract was for sale, and it was $49,900. And a property manager brought an investor. And so what I said was, hey, have your investor pay the 3% on top, and that's going to be what was basically what they were going to be paying for the house. And also because I negotiate that they were paying both the seller and the buyer's closing costs, the buyer understood that they were paying for the seller's closing cost as well. And that can vary depending on the situation, right? So for example, it was $49,900 is what was the total, with the assignment fee included in it, plus the 3%, which 3% of $49,900 is $1,497. So the total was $51,397 plus closing costs. So that's what the property manager presented to their buyer. They explained the situation and said, look, you'll be paying for my 3%. And that's how it happened, right? That can be paid off the settlement statement. So it's actually going through, the settlement station with Fleur de Lis. And this is one of the best situations where you can bring a buyer to the situation and get paid your 3%. here's what I'm gonna say. All three of these things where I'm talking about how you can make money is you want to consult your broker. Number one, not all brokers understand, and the confused mind says no. I'm happy to talk with your broker. If you want to give me a call, I'm gonna give you my phone number in a second. I'm happy to talk with them because a lot of times if they don't understand the concept, if they just have never heard of it, or they just have maybe haven't encountered someone who did it, poor job or whatever, they may be inclined to not understand the situation and how they're just scared liability, things like that, the legality of it. I'm happy to clear that up, or they can watch this video here, right? Because there'll be a playback. But talk with your broker about this because every single time I deal with a realtor, I include the broker in on the conversation. Now, unless I'm dealing with a broker, obviously I'm dealing with the decision maker. So this is the best situation though. You bring an investor that you're already working with, or one within your sphere of influence that is looking for, some off-market deals, some investment deals. Maybe it's a rental, maybe it's a flip, maybe it's something they can do from bond for deed to, a rent to own. So one of the things is you can then, that's an easy commission, right? Generally it is a cash buyer, and generally it is, so that's an easy transaction. I'm gonna explain this really quick. A wholesale deal is not like normally buying off MLS. And what I mean by that is if you've ever bought from the auction, generally when you buy from the auction, so in St. Tammany, that's at the Covington Courthouse, when you go, there are like say a list of properties that are gonna be auctioned off, and you don't get the option to go ahead, that you don't get the time to inspect the property. Generally there's someone living there that's being foreclosed on, or it's vacant and that's trespassing. You generally are buying sight unseen, as is, where is, whatever, put a big ribbon on it because it's a surprise gift for you. But when you go into that auction courthouse, you need to know your numbers, because whenever you bid, you're bidding to buy, right? As is, where is, whatnot. Now with MLS, you put in an offer, you get under contract, then you have an inspection period and you can renegotiate, get some stuff fixed, you can back out, things like that. I always say wholesaling is like buying at the auction, where when you make an offer, you're buying it as is, where is, and you're making an offer to buy. But you have the benefit, generally you have the benefit of walking the property. So whenever we do the assignment of contract, we're then locking in that person to buy. We ask, and this is 99.9% of the time, I speak for myself, but 99.9% of the time with other wholesalers is all due diligence must be done up front, okay? So I've had some people pay for home inspections and they put in an offer, but I often get multiple offers and they weren't the offer that was picked, right? So knowing that there is something like that is, it's just one of those things where at the end of the day, understand that this is different from the MLS buying process, okay? As realtors, I want to plant that seed in there. So here's one thing is cash buyers are almost always what is necessary to buy a wholesale deal. There's also going to be wholesaler requirements, meaning due diligence up front. There's going to be a non-refundable earnest deposit, meaning the reason non-refundable is because they're selling their rights in the contract. And when they sign that contract, they, basically they're getting the process of selling their rights to that started. They're not going to do that without someone having some skin in the game. So that's where it's not a normal earnest money situation. So it's non-refundable. And again, no inspections post closings. Anytime someone does that, I say that's for your peace of mind, not to be reflected on the contract, okay? So that's one way, bringing buyers to the situation, okay? You get you 3% added, talk with your broker as far as what that looks like, but that's an easy way, right? Generally with cash deals, you guys have dealt with them. They can be, if they're generally closing in 2 to 3 weeks, it can be fast and it can be easy, right? So one of those things is the second way is a marketing or consulting fee. So I saw Angie put in there so she said, hey, isn't it, illegal to pay whenever someone isn't licensed? So I'm not licensed, but Sharon is. Let's say Sharon sends something my way and I do a deal. I pay out marketing fees or consulting fees. Generally call them like finder's fee, bird dog fees, things along those lines. But because I'm not licensed through LREC, that is not, that's not allowed. So this may be, so the referral fee, the finder's fee, the bird dog fee, this is very different from that, okay? In the sense that I'm not paying off of a percentage. It is a flat fee. And what I'm doing here is this is a way that I've been able to work with realtors and brokers, and they've been able to work with me, and we've been able to stay compliant. And soon Sharon's going to go into that part. So what I'll do here is say so the situation I just told you about the hoarder house where there was deferred maintenance, the sellers had health issues, they needed to sell, they needed to downsize, they couldn't afford it, and that they had deferred maintenance. That actually was a lead that came to me from a broker. They said, hey, I cannot physically list this or do anything, but I still want to help this seller. I can help them find the house that they're going to downsize with, but I can't help them sell this house. Hoarder house situation, I cannot list it, open house, all this stuff. Can you please help me? So they sent me that lead. So in general, say you're a realtor and you come across something and you send something my way, again, I'm not licensed, so I can't pay you. But here, if you send me a lead my way, 123 Main Street, and I do a deal, whether I buy it as a flip rental, I buy it as a wholesale deal, and I do a transaction. Here's what I do is I do pay out realtors, but what I do is I actually have a whole separate LLC, right? I treat this like a business, and I want to stay compliant because I care about being this a long term, right? If people don't care about being stuff in the long term, they're going to cut corners and they're going to be shady, right? That's at least what I found. So what I do is I have a whole separate entity that is a marketing and consulting company. I do no real estate through it. I do have consulting. I do some consulting. I do some marketing through it, things on those lines. And so no real estate happens through it. And it is specifically a marketing and consulting company that is completely separate. What I do is through that entity, one of my companies will basically pay into that company for some marketing, and what they'll do is they will reimburse the realtor who did the marketing or the consulting for the situation. So then we're allowed to then go through that LLC and pay out a marketing fee. Because for example, what if that same realtor who spent $200 to send mail to a neighborhood, they get this hoarder house situation as a lead, but they're like, I can't do anything with it. And let's say they send them my way, I do a transaction. Generally what I pay is $500 plus, just depending on the deal. If it's a phenomenal deal, I had one deal where we were looking at paying out in the thousands. We had something that fell through at the last minute, but we were ready to cut a check for thousands of dollars because it was a larger deal. So again, I do multifamily commercial house packages and stuff like that. So because I do it through that different entity, it is compliant and it's able to go through. Again, I'm involving the realtors and brokers through that. Look, for $500, potentially more. And that only happens if it closes, right? So like if a deal comes through and I don't close it because maybe it's not a deal, maybe it's not solvable, or right now, whatever, right? So what we do is, so that's when I then will contact the realtor, say, hey, congratulations, that lead you sent me went through, we had a closing. How, that's when we, obviously we talked with the broker and we get it paid out. It's not paid out in the HUD. Generally, that's when it's just paid out from that marketing company. Here's the thing is, all they generally do is send me the address and the person. They say, hey, I'm sorry, I can't help you do this listing. I'm not the right fit for you, but I do know someone. Courtney can help you. She's very familiar with situations like this, and she's very capable. So here's one of the things is really quickly, it's an opportunity for easy money for you because you're just sending, you're just making that connection there. And then, time goes by, I work the deal, and then, and you get paid, right? So it's easy money. There's no limit on how many you can do. But here's the thing is that you've got to refer the client to a trusted specialist. So please keep in mind a few things. Again, understanding the full-time versus the hobby. You want to look for specialists and people who have credibility and competency, who are trustworthy and who are ethical, just like you would if you were looking for, say, a contract or something like that, right? Again, this is something you would talk with a broker about. And then lastly, the third one is retail leads in exchange for a marketing consulting fee. So this is the reverse way. Many times people call me and I said, look, I don't really honestly care about knowing about the house. That's usually what I'll tell them. Look, honestly, they're like, oh, you got to come see, I've done all this work. I've done this and this. I say, look, honestly, to be honest, I walk so many houses, I don't really care about that part. But what I'm wanting to do is specifically, I am wanting to hear about why are they calling me? Why? I don't care if it's a falling down trailer or whatever, the hoarder house or a burn, a fire damage burned house. or it is a, $500,000 home in excellent suburb condition, new construction. I don't care to what spectrum. I don't care what spectrum that the house is on. I'm always going to say, why would you sell such a nice house like this? Because I don't care about the purchase price, and I don't care about the house, the sticks and the bones of the house, as much as I care about the problem. Why? Why are you looking to sell? A lot of times I don't even enter the house, or I don't go past the porch, or don't go past the kitchen, because I'm so busy wanting to figure out. I don't really want to get too far in depth with the house and the logistics of that until I find out the why. Because if I'm not there to solve a problem, again, like I said before, I'm not the best fit. And if I'm not the best fit, I want to find out very quickly. So I have a process in place to find out very quickly if I'm the right fit or not. And if I'm not the right fit, for example, some people say, hey, I just really don't want to pay 6% real estate commission. So I am not going to, I don't really want to list with the realtor because I don't want to pay 6% because yada, 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 objection for paying commissions, right? That's something that's common that comes my way. Hey, you're a cash buyer. I just want someone who will be a cash buyer. So it's an easy transaction, but I want top dollar. So generally, if someone wants top dollar, there's ways that I've worked with people, but it's not going to be with cash, right? I have there's a seesaw. If I pay cash, I'm going to have a price point that I'm going to name. If you name the price point, I'm going to name the terms, and it's not going to be cash generally. So there's ways I can do it. It's just not going to be cash like you want it to be, okay? But here's the thing is when people say, hey, I just don't want to pay 6%, I say, look, let's have a come to Jesus moment. Just because you don't want to pay 6% real estate commission does not mean you need to be selling to someone like myself, because let's face it, I'm a lot more expensive than that. I generally, off the very top, let's say perfect condition, a house is worth $100,000. I generally am looking day one, no repairs needed, to buy it at $70,000. Why do I need 30% and $30,000 in equity? Because that is the real estate strategy that I need to be able to have to buy equity, closing costs, and profit, right? So those are some of those things where, look, I generally, my starting point is 30% in equity. That's a lot more expensive than the 6% you're trying to negotiate within. And so I usually say, hey, I'm not the right fit for you. I'm not even going to come out to the house. Let's have, things like that. So here's the thing is, so there's people who are turnover rate, right? So what I'll do is there is one that there are people that I work with. So like, say for example, I get leads that come away and really like, honestly, hey, hon, you're not supposed to, this is not really the best fit. Like you really shouldn't, there's no need for you to be selling something like me. Like there's no pain point. There's no, if this doesn't happen, this will happen type thing. What we usually do in that point, I say, hey, look, I've got a realtor on my team who I work frequently with. I'm happy to work with you to send them, and she can help solve this problem for you. But she'll help, pit on the retail market and hope to pit someone, because the person who's going to pay the most for your house is going to be someone who's going to live in it, who's going to get a loan, who's going to live in it, because when they, fall in love with it, it's their primary residence, they're going to pay the most, not an investor, right? So generally what we do is I'll send leads to the realtor that I work with, and what they'll do is, if they close on the deal, they generally will cut me a flat fee for marketing. They've cut it to my marketing company. And from there, it is able to legally, they're able to pay me for the marketing efforts. Again, wholesaling is generally a marketing company that's doing a ton of marketing. And from there, we're able to come back around and, from there, do real estate out of the leads it produces, right? This is something that you need to talk to your broker about. And honestly, I usually only charge if the deal closes. And usually here it is, I usually get the seller's information and their permission, and I share with the realtor, and the realtor contacts them and moves forward with the, either getting the listing or helping them buy or whatever. But here's the thing is, if you're a realtor and this sounds beneficial to you, you want to present yourself as someone who is trustworthy, credible, competent, and things along those lines. But this is just a way, like I said, if someone's looking to sell at retail, I'm generally, unless they're willing to do terms, I'm generally not interested. Because there's just not enough spread there. So here's my last little few things. I know I need to be wrapping up and go to Sharon, for her to be Sharon. Look, here's the thing, guys. With ethics, I encourage, again, I use the RIA as a little bit of a soapbox, and my position in the community is, guys, I don't want people selling people, dragging sellers along, right? Just saying, hey, making all these promises, but not really being able to execute on it. I'm honest with the sellers about the process. I look, I don't really like to make guarantees because, you know, no one knows what they'll be able to actually do. And now more than ever, I'm obviously just, I don't want to do a sleight of hand, right? Hey, you think you're selling to me and all of a sudden you're selling to this guy, right? I tell them up front, I said, look, it's either me or they're going to be investors that I work with. And I tell them there's times where I will flip deals to other investors. Is that good with you? Right? And so this is 100% about solving problems. So when it comes to ethics and you're dealing with people who are in a difficult place in life, you know, maybe they're foreclosures, things along those lines. I always recommend people to deal with them pretty gently, I guess would be the best word to put it, you know, and just understand where they're at in life. So here's some ways, I'm going to close up here. Here's some ways to work with me specifically. If you're a realtor or you're another wholesaler, send, if you've got problems that you don't know how to solve, send them my way. I'm not looking for properties. Again, I'm looking for problems. And so some of my niches are specifically pre-foreclosures. I work a lot of pre-foreclosures. And then I also specifically work complex deals. Maybe there's complex title issues. Maybe it's complex because there's a lot of heirs. Maybe it's complex, you know, because it's a large package of houses and whatnot, or it's large commercial. If you are a realtor and you have investors that you represent and you maybe want to bring for that 3%, right? Get added to my buyers list. You can follow us on our Facebook page. So it's going to be, I'll put it in the comments, facebook.com/SELA. So Southeast Louisiana, SELA deals. Or we're building out a site right now that'll put all of our deals on it. It's going to be SELARE as in real estate deals.com. So SELARE deals.com. But right now I want you to write out my cell phone number. My cell phone number is 985-259-2858. You guys, I'm happy to do free consulting. Well, if you're a realtor and you come across these problems and you try to understand, is this something that you should outsource? Is this something that you can solve on your own? You know, something along those lines. I'm happy to help. At the end of the day, I feel like I don't go to work because I feel like I'm just out helping people. And I enjoy those parts, right? So there is a level that I'm gonna do that. If you're looking for someone in your area to do work with, anytime you see a We Buy Houses sign, call those. If you see real estate investor groups, join those, get involved. Honestly, networking, it can get you in more rooms than so many things, okay? So networking is huge. But anything along those lines, guys, I'm gonna be staying in the chat room, but those are those things I just wanted to share. I think I covered everything I wanted to share with you guys. I think I had 8 pages of notes, so forgive me, I went a little bit over. But Sharon's gonna jump in on the compliance part. And if there's anything that I can do to help, I'll be in the comments section now, okay?
Well,
All right, thank you guys.
I want to piggyback real quick before Sharon starts. Like somebody asked in the group, how do you find a wholesaler to work with? And Courtney kind of touched on it at the end there. Networking with people in the investor community is super important because Courtney, none of the business that she's managing and closing is something that a listing agent or a real estate agent is going to typically want to handle. So networking with people like Courtney and referring her business, supporting her business is going to then turn around and support your business because she's going to meet with people who, like she said, she's going to tell them, look, you're trying to stay on the 6% and I'm not that person. Your property is right for a retail listing. You need to go find a real estate agent that you want to work with. And if you refer to Courtney, I know that because she's done it in the past, she'll refer things back to you. So that's important. And the other thing somebody asked was what the different things that need to be listed in an assignment of contract. I would rather somebody reach out to me directly about the details and specifically, and when you look at those things, each investor wants different things listed in their assignment of contract, and those assignments can be very basic if they need to be. So just give me a call. I'll put my email address in the Facebook message, and I'll put it in here too. So I'll pass it on to Sharon now.
There it is. Okay, cool. Thank y'all so much. Great job, Courtney. Yeah, absolutely check out the RIA events and all the things that she helps promote good business and education. And thank you, Jared, as well for inputting, moving my screens around. So very much wonderful value. I'm trying to figure out, let's see, how to end video. Let's see. Oh, well. But anyway, so what I'm going to do is get started on compliance. And Courtney, how do you make it to where it's back? let's see, exit full screen, speaker screen. Y'all forgive me. I don't usually do this thing.
What are you looking for?
Let's see, I'm just trying to just get it to the main screen. Oh, there you are. Okay. Cool. I saw you and then I saw Jared and then I see me in the top right. Okay, cool. All right, everybody. So we're going to go over compliance. So if you're a realtor that you're listening and you're wondering how on earth realtors can work with another realtor when it comes to marketing fees, referral base, all those kind of things, we're going to talk about that. And also what you need to have in your contracts and the type of contracts you need to have whenever it comes to compliance. So to kind of piggyback on what Courtney was talking about whenever, because I'm licensed. Now, granted, like I said, my niche is investment work. A lot of the things, I don't need to reiterate, the things that Courtney does, I have the opportunity and I do as well. And so those are the kind of things that I do. Even though I'm licensed, I still have to follow a different set of rules. So things that you heard with Courtney, that is how you would work with her if you're licensed. If you're not, she can go over those kind of things with you as well, a wholesaler to a wholesaler or wholesaler to person. So I'm just going to talk to you because I'm licensed to licensed. So as a licensed person, that brings me a seller lead. We're going to make sure that you're getting paid compliantly for sure across the board. That's very important, just like what Courtney talked about when it's wholesaler to realtor and vice versa. Now you can get paid marketing fees, for seller leads, like she explained. You can still get that even realtor to realtor, believe it or not. However, we're going to go over the things you need to make sure that you check into before that happens. And then the other thing that we want to make sure that is that you're going to get all your ducks in a row. You're going to make sure that you're, let's see, my screen did something wacky. You're going to make sure that you get all your ducks in a row that you may need in order to accomplish those things, determine how you're going to get paid. And then you're going to take a look at your broker contract. Make sure that you're looking at the verbiage inside of that, because that's huge. You being licensed, that when you sign on that dotted line, you need to make sure you know what you're signing. Because every broker is different. I've gone through a few since I've started, and the only reason being is because one took a step back. The other one, I got another position offered to me and started doing their transaction work. And so each contract is very, very different. So you just need to make sure that you're looking at those and you get with a great attorney, make sure that they can help educate you on that as well. And we'll talk about that in just a second. So, and then of course, get with your broker. Even me as a, my main niche being investment work, and as a wholesaler, and one of the layman's terms for that, even though I am licensed, I still want to talk with your broker. If we're going to work together, have those conversations. Let's look at your contract, make sure that we're doing things the compliant way and everybody is on a great foot. So, we want to make sure we do that because every broker is different. So of course, like we were talking about, make sure you consult with a broker. I'm going to say that a million different times. Make sure you consult with an attorney and also an accountant, because your accountant, you need to have a really great one. And I'll even, throw Bob Norton out here. He's phenomenal. I actually met him through Courtney. He's a broker, he's a wholesaler, he's an accountant. He knows all of those types of things. So you need to have a specialty accountant to help you through different things and navigate the waters to make sure that, you're on the right page. So as a realtor, it's great to have someone that gets it, because not every accountant out there gets it in regards to real estate, because there's a ton of different strategies. An example of what I did. So, and in regards to contracts and all that. So I don't know if a lot of you know, but I do transaction coordinating for the Williams team over here on the Northshore. They, circulate throughout the entire southern region of Louisiana. Well, not entire, but major part of it. They're one of the top teams in this area. So I do their transaction work. But the thing is that it's so wonderful that they took me on, because they also respect where I'm at and they understand what I do and what my goals are as an entrepreneur. And so it's really a blessing to be able to do that. Now, however, whenever I came on to the team, Keller Williams actually has every brokerage has their own contract. Well, Keller Williams Metairie has their own contract, just like everyone else has their own. So for me as an investor, we want to make sure that there was clarity in the intent of the contract, and their intent is very pure. It's very honest. They're there to protect the agent. They're there to protect anyone involved, and of course the brokerage themselves. So whenever I went to sign the contract, we had some things that we cleared up, consulted with my attorney, and we got those things squared away. It was really great to, for example, like even with Fleur title, just to really be able to hear their knowledge and help with certain things to be able to overcome stuff, because I'm not an attorney, so I don't even know really how to write those kind of things. But, you know, it just really came down to getting with my broker. We, you know, they had a clear understanding, like Courtney mentioned earlier, if you were on here, making sure that your attorney making sure that your broker knows what you're doing and educate them on what you're doing whenever you're, for example, like myself as a wholesaler, but in the sense of even working with them and making sure that they understand what that means, because they want to make sure that you're doing everything the right way. So really it came down to me getting with my broker, making sure there's clarity there, consulting with an attorney, and then really understanding the differences between referrals, marketing fees, paying for leads, all that kind of stuff. So what we did is I got a contract squared away. I have my, not only that contract, but then also clarifying marketing fees and all of that jazz and making sure that that was okay. Now, what we did is that seller referrals, you have seller referrals and you have buyer referrals. And usually those are agents to agents, those are referrals, and you know what a referral is. Now, marketing fees are quite different. So that is what Courtney explained. We're spending money marketing and doing different things. Well, for me, in my case, not every realtor has to do this. This goes back to your broker and your contracts. For me personally, I created a marketing LLC. This has been in the works for a while. We finally got all the things pulled on it. And for me, that's where everything generates from. They're not paying me as a realtor whenever an agent pays me for leads that I generate for them. They're paying my marketing company. And so that way everything is clear, it's kosher. That, like Courtney said, it's just really name, address, you're shooting it to them. It's kind of the concept of like sold.com or all of these other lead generators. It's the same thing. So whenever you put it in a simplistic way. So you have differences of seller referrals, buyer referrals, you have marketing fees. And then as far as let's see, I have a few little notes here. I don't want to miss anything for you guys. You know, a conversation with your broker needs to be had before, you know, to review your guidelines, like I mentioned before. Money from a licensed realtor to another licensed realtor, believe it or not, I'm going to hit this right on the head because it got brought up in our person presentation. Money from a licensed realtor to another licensed realtor does not have to go through the broker's bank account. It does have to go through your broker though. So you want to make sure, that's why it goes back to these conversations, that's just an LREC rule, period. Now, if you're generating leads and you have a marketing LLC and that's the route that you want to do and you're doing this full time and that's what you do, it's not just like a hobby for you kind of thing, then that is another route that you can go about tackling that. And that's a whole nother can of worms that you want to make sure that you consult with the proper people to accomplish that. And then as far as, you know, with my marketing efforts, so I have the LLC, that company sells leads to other people and it can pay other wholesalers, it can pay licensed folks, things like that. But again, there's rules to be followed. So if, for example, someone brings me a buyer, let's see. So if I have someone bring me a buyer and then there's a in wholesaling, the buyer, lost my train of thought, sorry. So if you have somebody bring you, say for me as the realtor, and I have somebody bring me a buyer for a contract that I have for a property that I have under contract is what I was trying to get at. Well, then like Courtney mentioned earlier, you're still going to add that commission on top of there and you'll get paid as a realtor. You're going to go through the process of it being on the contract. Now, the other side of that is if, say you bring me a seller lead and it's something that you actually want to know more about wholesaling. Say that's just something you want to dig your feet into and you want to learn more about it. It's called JVing, it's joint venturing. Now, granted, you know, somebody, and what that means for one thing is if you're going to bring me an opportunity and you're like, man, Sharon, I just really have this opportunity. I don't know what to do with it, but you know, I've ran the comps on it. I, you know what the repair costs are going to be because I talked to the potential client, you know, and I know what the after repair cost is going to be. It looks like a great deal. Do you mind reviewing this with me? And if it comes to something, I'd love to work with you on it. Well, then we'll talk and we'll go through that. you know, and go through what that process looks like, because then at the end of the day, we're joint venturing and you have the option to split profits at that point. So it's a totally different, like Courtney, I love the word that you use is advanced. So it's another advanced strategy that you have in real estate that you can accomplish. So hopefully I didn't lose you guys too much there. Start to get the thinking and my brain just gets ahead of my words. So I guess we'll go ahead and jump. So just to kind of recap that is that you have the traditional realtor referral and buyer referral fees. You have what's called marketing fees. And then you also have opportunities where if I have something under contract as a wholesaler, then you'll tack on your commission on top of that. Whenever you pitch it back to your buyer, we'll have those conversations. And then they'll get, you know, paid, well, they'll get their property and you'll get paid as well. And then you also have the junior venturing option as well. So, joint venturing option as well. And we can talk more about that. You can reach out to me if it's more on that side of it. Regardless, Courtney's done both sides of everything. So, I mean, whichever route you want to take. So now we're going to jump into compliance. So the first question I asked myself when I heard wholesaling was, how on earth can this be compliant and I'm actually going to be okay? Because I don't know about you, but I worked super dang hard to not only get my license, but also to get where I'm at and where I'm going, and surrounding myself by great mentorship and education. And that is what I pour back for my music. I'm a singer. And so my passion is music. And so to be able to pour back real estate into that, regular 9 to 5, and that's all I did, that's not going to get me there. I've been laid off before. I know what that feels like. It's terrible. And a lot of people are dealing with that now. It's just that, you know, what I'm getting at is very important to me. So dotting my I's, crossing my T's, doing good business, all of that. So what I did is I researched and I got with LREC, sent them my disclosures. I asked them questions. I wanted to know, how on earth is this legit? And once I got it explained to me, and you got to talk to me a certain kind of way. So once it finally got explained to me in a way that my brain was going to register it, I got it. It was just a lack of education, and it's okay. That's why it's important for us to talk with your broker, talk with you. If you have questions, by all means, we're here to help educate. But at the end of the day, we're not attorneys. We're not accountants. You know, we're not a broker, but or should I say, we're not LREC. So you want to consult with all those parties before you jump in and make certain decisions. So LREC, the top 3 things that LREC that I will make sure that I point out is, the first thing they said, disclose, disclose, disclose. That is what gets realtors in trouble when it comes to contracts and conversations with potential clients. So, you know, verbally and in writing, you want to make sure that you're sharing that with people if you're going to do wholesaling. Or, for example, like Courtney said, if you're going to share this with someone like us to be able to help you, because it's not something that's really listable, then we're going to help walk them through that. In my case, I'm going to let them know, look, I'm licensed to, I'm not here to list your property. If you were going to do that, you'd use, you know, this person that, you know, referred us, and, you know, go on about your business. But I'm here to help you on more creative options that are out there with other real estate opportunities to be able to get your property sold, but more so, like Courtney said, make sure that problem solved that they're looking to overcome. So disclose, 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 verbally and in writing. So on my disclosure, so I have a disclosure on my contract, and I will give you, now you want to make sure that you get with your folks to be able to clarify this for you and in your situation, but this is pretty much the generic part, and I have a lot of other stuff on this contract. But it really just says Sharon Rock signing for, and then I'll have my company, which is Southern Star Enterprises, is a licensed, a Louisiana licensed realtor. That line is so important. You've got to put your name, who you are, and that you are licensed. And this is going on the section of the Louisiana Purchase Agreement and the additional comments. And also I put it on an extra document for an addendum that's attached to it, because it's got a lot of other jargon on there. And I put it on the assignment, which I'll get to. I'm one, hey, not enough disclosure, you know, put plenty of it. I, Sharon, am not acting as a licensed realtor on this transaction and recommend seeking advice from a licensed real estate agent and or attorney if any questions arise in the value of your property and or questions regarding this contract. I, Sharon, have signed a valid purchase and sale agreement with the seller of the property, which allows me to sign my rights to purchase the property. I am not currently the owner on record of this property, so I am only assigning the contract and my right to purchase the property. Value valuable consideration may be paid to a signer for said assignment from assignee, and may be paid to a signer, which is me as the wholesaler. The assignee is your end buyer. That's going to be paying for that. This does not change the amount owed to the seller or after the proceeds allocated to seller at time of closing. Now it's a little lengthy, but it's very important. The biggest thing is making sure you disclose that you're a realtor, and then your intent in there. So you just want to make sure that that is where you're going with your disclosures. Now, as far as even my conversations, I mean, my conversations, whenever I'm talking with, say I had reached out to someone and said, hey, are you interested in selling? And they call me back and said, yeah, you know, what's going on? Well, my conversations typically start as, hey, I'm Sharon. I am with Southern Star Enterprises, which is my investment company. I'm also a licensed realtor, but I'm not here to list your house. I tell them right off the bat. I was like, you know, I'm not here to list your house. Now, granted, that is an option if that's something you choose to do. But our goal is just to help you solve a problem. So we have a bunch of options. It depends on where you're at. So we help people from buying at and I'll tell them it's 70–80% of market value, less repairs and, less repairs and renovation costs. However, that has changed a little bit now that the times that we're in. So we'll have to dive in a little bit deeper about that and what that looks like. But we also help people in foreclosure, pre-foreclosure. We help people with, helping get money in their pocket each month and making sure that they're not getting hit really bad with taxes and just a number of different things like that. So now, granted, like I said, I am licensed. We can help you list if that is something that makes more sense for you after we sit down and talk about what problems you're looking to solve. So tell me which one of those options right off the bat would you like to know more about? And now, granted, once we get to talking, who knows? Maybe some more things might arise to where you might find a better option for yourself. Does that sound good? And we work through that because it's about solving the problem. So we're not trying to take, for me, I'm licensed anyway, so I'm not out there scouting for listings. I'm scouting for problems that I can help solve. Granted, I have that extra tool in my toolbox, just like Courtney has a ton of realtors that she works with. I say a ton, but she's got realtors that she trusts in, that she pitches that back to them, and that's one of those plattered options. For me, it's there. I have a team that kills it with listings, and so we help navigate those waters with them if that's something should they choose to do. A great example, I'm actually closing on it next Friday. Believe it or not, we have a closing in April, which is great. I had an opportunity that was shared with me from a friend, and she is getting a marketing fee out of this, which is super awesome. But she's getting it on both sides because I have the seller and the buyer. And so she shared this client with me. And I went over there, and the client was all about wanting a cash buy. That's what she wanted. She needed to be out of there within 30 to 60 days, like actually more like 30 from what she told me originally. So I went over there and I had that honest conversation with her. I was like, I don't think that you're going to want a cash buy for this. And she asked me why. And I explained to her, it was a great house. It was in great condition, something like that. I said, honestly, I think you get more out of it to list it. I said, but you're on a time crunch. So, let's walk through here. I can present you with both options and then do that. And she wasn't wanting more of the installment side because she wanted to be able to reinvest, get something else so her and her significant other could travel for missionary work. And so we sat down and we looked at those options, and actually came down, she wanted to list it. She somehow discovered she had more time in her pocket and she was okay with that. So we ended up getting it listed, and now she gets to go to closing, and we found her a new place to get in. And it was a win-win across the board. And that's what it's about, is making sure that it's a win-win for everybody, and you're not there just to make a penny or $1,000 or whatever the case may be. At the end of the day, it's making sure that you're helping that client. So the next thing I'll go to as far as, so we've got disclosures verbally and in writing. And then the last two things that I'll hit on are, you've got to, if you're licensed, like Courtney's not licensed, she's an investor, so she can use whatever contract she chose to be able to use. Me being licensed, any realtor that does wholesaling, you have to use the Louisiana State Purchase Agreement. So if you come across a wholesaler that's licensed and they're not doing that, I'm not saying throw them under the bus, but have that conversation. Say, hey, I don't know if you're new to this or not, but I heard you may want to get that. You may want to get with LREC. You may want to get with an attorney. But from what I heard, I know that you're supposed to be using Louisiana purchase agreement. So you just want to, I mean, it's about being able, sorry, there's my dog in the background. I just drank water. So you want to be able to make sure that that is happening. So you use Louisiana state purchase agreement, you make sure your disclosure is in there, and all that jazz. And then lastly, you have an assignment of contract. So no different than the process that Courtney's doing as an investor. I've got for me though, I have the Louisiana state purchase agreement, and then my company signs on there, or it could be someone in my team, whatever the case may be, my investor team. But typically I sign that contract to purchase that property. I have that conversation with the seller. They know that it may be me. It might be one of my partners. And they're fine with that. And I also make sure I go over, it's a little lengthier of a contract. So I still make sure I hit all of those important nuggets in there and still advise them to get with a trusted realtor and an attorney so that if they had any questions. And so then once we get through all that, we get it signed on the dotted line. Then I'm out there, whether it's me, I'm moving forward to closing, or if I have one of my cash buyers and they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I want this. Well, I have no problem turning it over for a profit. So then I have an assignment of contract. It has in there my disclosure again, can't have that enough. And then it also discloses, what the purchase, what the payment will be to me. And then they will make, not me, but my company. And then we'll have that all signed out and other things within that contract that will go along with it. And then from there, we're just going to move forward to closing. And then everybody's happy. Everybody's got, got the seller that gets that monkey off their back. You got an investor that gets their new property and whatever they're going to do with it. And then at the end of the day, yeah, I got paid, but I got to help somebody. So hopefully that kind of struck some more questions. I would love to answer some. But in a nutshell, that is pretty much all that jazz. So what we got. Oh, and then too, I'll give this too. I have the Sharon Rock Real Estate Entrepreneur Facebook page. We put that in the comments too. My cell is 985-276-9116. You can call or text, either one. Texting is a little bit easier. That way I can get back with you. Or you can email me all that information. We can, get that uploaded for you. And I have Southern Star Enterprises. That is where I do my flips out of and things like that. Or I have my transactional type stuff. And then I do marketing leads for realtors. So, if you have something out there in regards to where I can help with that, that's something that we can work out too. So, all right. But Courtney, I guess you could see the questions on that side.
I think I went through and I answered all the questions that have been put in the chats. You guys have been active in the chat group, guys. Thank you for that.
Awesome.
And if you have any more questions, you guys are welcome to ask them right now. I know we're gearing up toward the end of this, but you're always welcome to reach out to us and ask. And look, I put in there the group Southeast Louisiana Real Estate Investors for our region. You can ask questions in that group on like a daily basis. There's more than 1,500 local investors and real estate professionals in there. So you're welcome to go in there if you maybe have a deal to share that you want to share, a contract for sale. You want to find, you're looking for one, you have buyers looking for one, questions, looking for referrals, whatever that looks like. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Y'all make sure to go to the Northshore RIA events. Courtney has some really, really great speakers that attend that. Whenever we're able to be in person, she's been doing a lot of stuff virtually, and she also does, what is it, every third Tuesday or every Tuesday, y'all were doing the lunch and learns, but you're doing those virtually, right?
Yeah, I usually do 2 to 3 events a month. Normally whenever we're able to meet like physically, because of COVID-19, we're meeting virtually. And honestly, guys, as this market is shifting, my goal is to up the amount of content that we're putting out there. And I want to use my broad network to bring in speakers even outside of our area.
Yeah, absolutely.
To do more webinars like this. So if you haven't liked the Northshore RIA page already, go like it. You can watch these free webinars that come up, things like that. We'll have more next week.
Cool. Well, anything else, Jared? Y'all got anything, man?
Yeah. So if y'all have any questions about putting together those assignment contracts for the agents that have to use the LREC contract, just let me know. Me and John can help you put those assignment contracts together. And then those of you who are not licensed agents and can use your own contract, we'll help you put those things together as well. If you have any questions about logistics on how the wholesale and assignment process works, be happy to talk to you about that as well, along with, any bond for deeds or credit sale type transactions you want to do. John and I can help you be creative with those. So give us a call. I put my number in the chat on both Facebook and on the Zoom call. So if you need me, call me. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Awesome. Great, y'all. Y'all were a wonderful crowd. Thank y'all so much for joining in. So we'll see y'all later.
Thank you guys. Have a great day. Happy birthday, Sharon. Y'all have a great day, okay? And then look, if you guys want to watch the replay, I put the link in there. It is facebook.com/NorthshoreREA/videos. You can watch the replay or even share it.
Awesome. Very cool. Thanks so much for helping get this thing squared away, because my technology Zoom experience is not that much.
Good
Cool.
stuff.
Thank y'all.
See you later.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.